This wasn't a case of the invitation getting lost in the mail. There was no argument over A+1, no fight about the seating chart. This was a clean, brutal cut. The message came over the phone, as cold and clear as a winter morning, from my only daughter, Chloe. I was officially, and very deliberately, uninvited from her wedding. The very wedding my life savings had helped pay for. In that moment, just staring at the phone in my hand, I felt a silence I'd never known before. But that silence wasn't going to last. Because I knew things her perfect fiancé didn't. And if I wasn't going to be the father of the bride anymore, I had to figure out what my new role would be. To really get why this felt like my whole world was being demolished, you have to understand how it was built. Chloe's mother left when she was 5. There was no big, dramatic fight, no tearful goodbye. Just a note on the kitchen counter, and suddenly, our life was half of what it used to be. From that day on, it was just me and Chloe against the world. I wasn't just dad, I was the tooth fairy, the monster checker in the closet, the homework helper, and the shoulder she cried on when her first crush broke her heart. I worked 2 jobs for most of her childhood, a mechanic during the day and stocking shelves at night, just so she'd never feel like she was missing out on anything. She got the ballet lessons, the school trips, the ridiculously expensive prom dress. Every single penny I earned was for her, to build a life for her that was better than the one I had. When she got into college, I cashed out a chunk of my retirement to make sure she wouldn't start her adult life drowning in debt. I really thought I was investing in her future. When she met Mark a couple of years ago, I was thrilled. He was everything you'd want for your daughter. Stable, kind, and he looked at her like she was the only person in the room. He came from a good family, had a great job in finance, and most importantly, he made her happy. When they announced their engagement, I was the first person they told. Chloe threw her arms around my neck, crying happy tears, and said, "You're going to walk me down the aisle, Daddy." That one sentence became my everything. We started planning right away. Chloe had always dreamed of a big, fairy tale wedding. A gorgeous old estate, a designer dress, flowers absolutely everywhere. The budget she showed me was staggering, but I just looked at her hopeful face and remembered the promise I'd made to myself all those years ago. I would give her everything. I wrote a check for nearly $70,000, more than half the total cost, without even thinking twice. It was for my daughter. It was for her happiness. For the next year, my life was a blur of cake tastings, venue visits, and endless talks about color palettes. I was in on every detail, the proud father of the bride. At first, the shift was subtle. Her mother, who had been a ghost in our lives for 20 years, suddenly popped back into the picture. She'd remarried some wealthy guy and apparently decided it was time to reclaim her title as mother. Chloe, who had spent years being angry or just plain indifferent about her mom's absence, was suddenly fascinated. It started with weekend trips, then fancy shopping sprees. Her new stepfather, Richard, was always there, flashing his cash and his perfect smile. Slowly but surely, I was being pushed out. My opinions on the wedding plans? Dismissed. Chloe's calls became less and less frequent. When I'd ask what was going on, she'd get defensive. "You're being paranoid, Dad." "I'm just busy." But I knew something was wrong. The foundation we had built over 25 years was starting to crack. The final blow landed on a Tuesday. It wasn't even a face-to-face conversation. She didn't have the guts for that. It was a phone call. I picked up, thinking we were going to talk about the final payment for the caterer. Instead, her voice was strained, distant. "Dad, we need to talk," she started. She said that with her mom back in her life, things were complicated. She said that to present a united family front, it was probably best if I didn't come to the wedding. I honestly thought it was a sick joke. "What are you talking about, Chloe? I'm your father. I'm paying for most of this thing. Richard and Mom are covering the rest," she said, her voice turning sharp. "And Richard is going to walk me down the aisle. It just makes more sense. It looks better." Looks better. Those 2 words just echoed in my head. My entire life of sacrifice, of being her rock, of building her future, was all being erased because it didn't look good. I was a mechanic with grease under his fingernails, not a rich executive like Richard. I was a reminder of a past she was desperate to rewrite. I pleaded with her, my voice cracking. I asked her to just think about everything we'd been through. Her response was pure ice. "My mind is made up. Please don't make this harder than it already is." And then she hung up. The next few days were just a blur of grief and rage. It was a humiliation so deep it felt physical, like a constant weight on my chest. I called her, I texted her, but my calls went to voicemail and my messages were left unread. I had been ghosted by my own kid. My investment wasn't just money, it was my entire emotional life. I had poured my soul into this child, and she had just decided I was a bad investment, a line item to be deleted from her new, upgraded life. This is where things started to change for me. The hurt was still there, raw and wide open. But something else started to grow right alongside it, a burning sense of injustice. Not just for me, but for Mark. He was a good man. Did he have any idea who he was about to marry? A few weeks before the wedding, I was cleaning out the garage and found an old box of Chloe's stuff from her college days. Tucked inside a textbook was a stack of unopened letters from a credit card company. Curiosity got the best of me. I opened one. Then another. And another. They were all final notices, demanding payment on accounts I never even knew existed. She had racked up over $40,000 in debt, all hidden from me, and I was sure, hidden from Mark. This discovery was the spark. I started digging. Not because I'm a vengeful person, but because I felt like I had a moral duty here. I remembered Chloe telling Mark about her prestigious university degree, something she'd always been a bit vague about with me. A quick search online confirmed what I suspected. She never graduated. She had dropped out of community college after just 2 semesters. The life she had sold to Mark, this image of a responsible, well-educated woman from a simple, loving home, was a complete and total lie. And the biggest lie of all? She had told Mark and his entire family that her mother had died when she was a child. She killed her own mother off to create a more sympathetic story, and now that same mother was bankrolling her new life. I decided to go to the rehearsal dinner. I wasn't on the list, obviously, but I knew the venue. I didn't go there planning to cause a scene. I think, in my heart, I was just hoping for one last chance to look her in the eye and see a flicker of the daughter I actually raised. The second I walked in, the music stopped. 100 pairs of eyes turned to me. Chloe's face went white with fury. She, her mother, and Richard marched right over to me. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, her voice low and full of venom. "I told you that you were not welcome." "I just wanted to talk to you, Chloe," I said, keeping my voice quiet. "There's nothing to talk about. You need to leave now before you embarrass yourself even more." Embarrass myself. That was it. That was the exact moment the hurt turned into cold, hard resolve. I looked right past her furious mother and her smug stepfather, and my eyes met Mark's from across the room. He just looked confused, concerned. I took a deep breath and spoke, my voice loud enough for the whole room to hear. "I won't be leaving. But Mark, you should probably know the truth before you make the biggest mistake of your life." A hush fell over the entire room. Chloe tried to shout me down, but I kept going, my eyes locked on Mark. "You think you're marrying a woman who is financially responsible? You should ask her about the $40,000 in secret credit card debt she's bringing into this marriage." Mark's face went pale. Chloe screamed, "He's lying." "Am I?" I said calmly. "I can show you the statements. And while we're on the subject of honesty, you might also want to ask her about that prestigious degree she claims to have. She dropped out of community college after 2 semesters. But I guess the most important thing you should know, Mark, is about family. She told you her mother died, didn't she? A tragic little story to win your sympathy. Well, her mother is standing right next to her." I gestured to the woman who looked like she'd just seen a ghost. "She didn't die. She just abandoned her 5-year-old child." The silence that followed was absolute. It was broken by Chloe letting out this guttural sob, a sound of pure rage and defeat. Mark just stood there, his face a mask of disbelief and horror, looking from Chloe, to her mother, and then back to me. Richard started yelling, threatening to call security, but the damage was done. The fairy tale was torn to shreds. I didn't stick around to watch the rest. I just turned and walked out, the sound of my daughter's sobs following me out the door. My phone exploded with texts and calls from relatives, calling me a monster, a cruel old man who couldn't handle being rejected. But later that night, one call came through that I did answer. It was Mark. He wasn't angry. His voice was just hollow. He asked questions. He wanted to see the credit card statements. He wanted the name of the community college. I told him everything. The wedding, of course, was called off. Mark broke up with Chloe the next day. He told me she admitted everything when he confronted her. It was a horrible, messy disaster, and I still lie awake at night wondering if I did the right thing, or if I just let my pain and anger get the best of me. What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have a story of your own, I'd be interested to read it. My relationship with my daughter is gone. I haven't spoken to her since that night. I see pictures of her on social media sometimes, traveling with her mother and Richard, smiling for the camera. It's a smile I don't recognize anymore. There's a part of me that feels a dark sense of justification. I protected a good person from a lifetime of lies. I stood up for the truth when everyone else was happy to live in a beautifully decorated lie. But there's another part of me, a much larger part, that grieves. I see fathers walking their daughters down the aisle in movies or just on the street, and the ache is overwhelming. I exposed her secrets to save someone else, but in doing that, I destroyed the most important relationship in my life. I won the battle for truth, but I lost my daughter in the war. And that's a price I'll be paying for the rest of my days.